Imagine this. Everyone is laughing, the moment is perfect, and someone pulls out a phone and says, "Okay, group photo." And just like that, one person quietly takes a step back. They smile and say, "Oh, I'll take it for you." Or they suddenly need to use the bathroom, or they just vanish. You have probably seen this person. Maybe you are this person. This is not just about being camera shy. There is something much deeper happening in the mind of someone who consistently avoids group photos. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what that is. Let's start with a story. Sarah is 34 years old. She has a warm personality, a great job, and people genuinely love being around her. But at every office party, every family reunion, every birthday dinner, the moment someone raises a camera, something shifts inside her. Her chest tightens, her smile feels forced, and her only thought is, "Please do not include me in this." For years, she thought she was just being weird, but she's not weird. She's actually experiencing something that millions of people around the world feel, and psychology has a very clear explanation for it. The first thing to understand is that a camera does not just take a picture. For many people, a camera takes a verdict. When someone who struggles with self-image sees a camera pointed at them, their brain does not think, "This is a fun memory." Their brain thinks, "This is evidence." Evidence of how they look. Evidence that will be shared, saved, and seen by others. Evidence that feels permanent. Psychologists call this self-objectification. It's the tendency to view yourself through the eyes of an outside observer rather than from your own inner experience. When this happens, a person stops feeling like a participant in the moment and starts feeling like a subject being evaluated. And that shift from participant to subject is deeply uncomfortable. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Research from the University of Toronto found that people with lower self-esteem are significantly more likely to report negative emotions when seeing photos of themselves. But it's not just about thinking, "I look bad." It goes deeper than that. These individuals tend to believe that their appearance in photos reflects their true self, the self they fear others will judge. So avoiding the photo isn't vanity, it's protection. It's the mind saying, if this image does not exist, then neither does the judgment. This is a psychological defense mechanism, and like all defense mechanisms, it feels helpful in the short term, but quietly causes harm over time. Think about what gets lost when someone always steps out of the frame. There's a woman named Linda, now in her late 60s. She spent her entire adult life avoiding cameras. She thought she wasn't photogenic. She thought she'd look at the photos later and feel bad about herself. So she opted out again and again. A few years ago, she sat down with her grandchildren and they pulled out old family albums, and she realized something that made her cry. She was barely in any of them. Decades of her life, birthdays, holidays, vacations, and she was almost invisible. She'd been so focused on how she might look in the photo that she never thought about what it would mean to be missing from it. That moment stayed with her, because memories aren't just for you, they're for the people who love you. But it's important not to oversimplify this. Not everyone who avoids group photos has low self-esteem. There are multiple psychological layers at play. Some people avoid photos because of social anxiety. For them, it's not really about the image itself, it's about the attention. Standing in a group, everyone turning, the pressure to smile correctly, the awareness of being observed, all of that activates the same threat response in the brain that our ancestors used when they faced actual physical danger. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for detecting threats, doesn't always know the difference between a lion and a camera pointed at you in a crowded room. For someone with social anxiety, the emotional experience can feel startlingly similar. There is also the role of past experiences. Many people who avoid cameras had a specific moment, sometimes in childhood, where a photo became a source of humiliation. Maybe someone laughed at a picture of them. Maybe a photo was shared without their permission. Maybe they were mocked for how they looked in an image during a vulnerable age. The brain stores these experiences with emotional tags, and years later, even in a completely safe and loving environment, the sight of a camera can trigger that old emotional memory. The person does not always consciously remember why they feel uncomfortable. They just feel it. This is called an emotionally conditioned response, and it is remarkably common. Now consider perfectionism. Perfectionists have a particularly complicated relationship with photos. For a perfectionist, a photo is not just a memory, it is a performance review. Every angle, every expression, every detail is something to be assessed and found lacking. The perfectionist does not just fear looking bad, they fear not looking like the version of themselves they have carefully constructed in their own mind. There's actually a term for the gap between how we think we look and how we appear in photos. Researchers call it the mirror effect. We're used to seeing ourselves in mirrors, which show a flipped, controlled, and often slightly flattering version of our face. Photos do not give us that control, and for perfectionists, losing control, even over something as small as a photograph, can be genuinely distressing. Let's talk about something that does not get discussed enough: cultural and generational differences in photo avoidance. In many Western cultures, especially with the rise of social media, photos have become deeply tied to personal identity and public image. A tagged photo on social media is not just a snapshot, it's a statement about who you are, where you were, and how you looked. That level of social exposure creates a new kind of pressure that older generations never faced. Younger people today face what psychologists are beginning to call digital self-consciousness, the awareness that any photo could end up online, could be shared, could go anywhere, adds a layer of anxiety to what used to be a simple and joyful act. So, what can be done? First, simply understanding why this happens is already powerful. When someone steps back from a group photo, the instinct of those around them is often to push, "Come on, just one picture, you look great." But that kind of pressure, even when it comes from a loving place, can actually reinforce the anxiety and make the avoidance stronger over time. A gentler approach is to make the environment feel safer, normalizing candid, imperfect, unposed photos, letting go of the idea that everyone needs to look perfect, sharing photos privately rather than immediately online. These small shifts can slowly reduce the emotional threat that cameras represent for anxious individuals. For those who recognize themselves in this video, there is something worth sitting with. Avoiding photos feels like protection, and in a way it is, but it's also a form of erasure. When someone consistently removes themselves from shared memories, they're sending a message to their own brain: "I do not deserve to take up space in this moment." That belief, that you do not deserve to be seen, is worth examining. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. Where did that belief come from? When did being seen start to feel dangerous? What would it feel like to let yourself exist in a moment, imperfectly, without editing yourself out? These are not easy questions, but they are the right ones. Here's one final thought. The people who love you do not see the photo the way you do. They don't zoom in on your chin or your posture or the way the light hit your face. When they look at that photo 10 years from now, they'll see you. Just you. And they'll be glad you were there. The camera captures a moment, but choosing to be in the moment, choosing to be seen, even imperfectly, that's where the real psychology of courage lives.